For the very first time, we finally have official, factual findings in the crazy case of potential election fraud in North Carolina's 9th Congressional District. You might remember more than 3 months after Election Day, they finally began the state election board hearing today, and it is extremely damning for the campaign of Republican Mark Harris. Here's how the executive director of the North Carolina State Board of Elections laid it all out.
We believe the evidence that we will provide today will show that a coordinated, unlawful, and substantially resourced absentee ballot scheme operated during the 2018 general election in Bladen and Robeson counties.
State investigators found at least 1,000 ballots were illegally requested by a man named McCrae Dowless or his employees, well over the 905 vote margin that decided the race. Dowless's stepdaughter, Lisa Britt, a convicted felon on probation who admitted to illegally voting in the 2018 election, testified she was among the people who collected unsealed ballots from voters for Dowless.
So if it was unsealed and the ballot was not completely voted, you would fill in the other offices.
Yes, ma'am.
And who would have directed you to do that?
Well, we were directed by Mr. Dallas. Basically, what we would do, well, what I would do would be just vote whoever was the Republican.
Do you hear that? They were collecting ballots and filling them in for people, for whoever was the Republican. Investigators say after Republican Mark Harris's campaign hired Red Dome Consulting, the consulting firm then paid McCrae Dowless more than $130,000 for one congressional race. Harris has admitted to directing Red Dome to hire Dowless, but denies any wrongdoing. Despite this, the North Carolina GOP is still saying that their guy, Mark Harris, should be seated as a U.S. congressman. In a tweet today that in the best light is still pretty damning, they wrote, quote, "I think you've got one innocent person in this whole thing, and he's the one getting the really bad end of the deal here, and that's Mr. Mark Harris." That statement the GOP picked to convince the country of their candidate's innocence was said at today's hearing by none other than Lisa Britt, the convicted felon who had moments before admitted to illegally collecting and filling in strangers' ballots. So a consulting firm hired by a Republican candidate paid someone that engaged in the worst, most aggressive and egregious documented electoral fraud of the entire cycle. And the party that likes to scaremonger about voter fraud thinks their guy should still get to be seated in Congress. Hearing continues tomorrow, and the State Board of Elections will decide whether or not this qualifies as a fair election in the state of North Carolina or whether another election is needed. Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.